moved since we started, and I'm afraid she'll get a cramp in the foot on the ground.
Yeah. So we're live. So welcome to the Dirt Trail Running Podcast. And my name is Michelle Hartwig, and I'm your host. I am also race director for many Midwest trail races like Kettle Moraine 100, Hennepin 100, Frozen Gnome 50K coming up soon. And I am here with my co-host, Crystal the Pistol.
Hello, everybody. How's it going?
And we have a very special guest tonight, Gary Cantrell, but a lot of people know him as Lazarus Lake. And he is a very creative race director with the Berkeley Marathons, the Big Backyard Ultra, the Berkeley Fall Classic, Vol State 500K. Is there any more that I didn't get, Gary?
There probably are. I can't remember the whole list now. I was lost in thought. It's unfamiliar territory.
So, being with us tonight, I'm really anxious to get to know you better. Like, I know about your races, but I want to know more about you. And so what was your day like today in Bell Buckle, Tennessee?
I got up early and took care of the dogs. I have one that's convalescing from surgery on her hip, so she requires a lot of attention. She can't do anything. She's got a cone, which means that she can't do anything really on her own. And then we went out and did a couple of hours walk around the perimeter of the yard to try and watch out for poachers. We're having a poacher issue this year.
Okay. And what are they poaching?
Deer.
Okay.
It's really bad this year. So you have some, but they usually leak in around the boundaries, and once you leave signs that indicate you know they're there, they go away. But these ones think that you're the problem.
So I'm hoping that you're wearing bright orange when you're out there walking around watching for them.
Well, I wear a bright orange hat, but I just have my red flannel shirt.
Okay.
And me and the big take a tour of the property. Little usually goes with us, but she's can't go through the woods with a cone on her head.
Yeah. So you have two dogs?
They just don't adjust. Big dog and little dog.
Okay. Very creative names.
Before that, there was Wiener Dog. It works out really good because people, like, they saw the Wiener Dog and they'd say, look, it's a Wiener Dog. And she'd wag her tail because they knew her.
Yeah.
And he was big. They say, that's a big dog. And he wags his tail because they know him.
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. I met a dog once that you said, do you like your belly rubbed? And it would like roll over to have its belly rubbed. So I think that he thought that was his name. And that was a really good side effect.
Yeah, my dogs are familiar with the belly rub.
Yeah. So you walk a regular basis, like you live on a big farm. Like how big is your farm? Because you were telling me
it's like 140 acres. It's not real big, but there's a number of hills and creeks, and it's mostly all woods. So I've got trails built out there that I can go around the boundary or go from place to place. And if I could just get enough time to complete the trail system, you could get out there in the woods, and unless you knew where you were, go on and on, taking wrong turns and not find your way back. The big always, when he goes with me, he never chooses the turn that comes home.
Well,
When we
yeah.
come to when we come to a choice of which trail to take, he'll start down the one that goes away from the house and go about 10 feet and then stop and look back, hoping that we're not done.
That sounds like what my dog would do. And it sounds like what most ultra runners would want to do. How long have you lived there?
We've only been here maybe 11 or 12 years. And then the place I was before, we were there for 35 years. But it got to where you go out in the morning on your stand on your porch and I could see 3 houses.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, you just can't live like that. You have to have, but that's the mistake people make is they build on the edge of their property. What you want to do is get yourself way back in the middle in the woods, and that's where I am now. It's about 10 feet from any wall of the house to the tree line.
Oh, okay.
And any door you go out, there's a trailhead in front of you.
And was there a trail system there when you moved in?
No.
So in the 10 years that
building trails is not easy.
Oh, no, it's not at all. I'm very involved in trails, and I'm fascinated by how you built all these trail systems in your yard.
Very slowly. They started out really narrow and windy, and then year by year, every year getting ready the parts of the trails that go for that we use on the Big's backyard race. We make them a little wider and a little straighter. We move some of the loose rock out of the way and do different things to try to make it better and better. And a lot of the other trails that I use have never been really had anything done to them much at all. I just know where they are.
So maybe where the deer are out there running and stuff, and then you just go out exploring.
The animals make extensive use of the trail system, and the poachers do too.
Yeah.
And that's what they've been hunting some of the trails. We go through a little swamp and a creek at one point, and it's in a really thick cedar glade where the topsoil is really thin, so the big trees can't grow, and it's just little scrubby cedars. So the deer use that trail a lot to go through the water and then come up through the cedars where it was cleared. And that's where they've had a couple of them, that they made a couple of kills there.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that they're on your property.
Yeah, it's keep working at it, but it's really difficult to maintain. You just have to keep going out there and do whatever you can to discourage them.
I'm curious on getting back to your trails. Like, so you looked at your property, you've got all these acres, 10 feet outside your door. Like, how did you plan the route through the trees? Like, did you have an overhead of the property? Like, how did you decide which way to go, or did you just start bushwhacking your way through? And
well, you walk all over it until you see where things are and how all the hills and creeks and stuff lay, and then you just plan good routes to get from one place to another. And then there's a lot of rock features and stuff that are really pretty. And so I made a point of going to those. We have one hillside, we call it the Canyonland, and the canyons are actually only about waist deep to shoulder deep. But it probably used to be a cave system, and then over the thousands of years, the top is worn off, so you just have these canyons that go through the rock layers. And the big joke is it was really fortunate that they formed where each place there was a canyon was right where my trail was going to go through, because otherwise we'd have to climb over all the rocks with a perfectly good canyon right there. Truth is, I actually made the trails deliberately go to those places.
yeah. Yeah, we had Courtney on, and she talked about how gorgeous it was there. Did you always
It's a
did you live close by there? Had you moved far away from your previous home that you're at 35 years?
it's about 15 miles from here to there. So um, if you knew the lay of the land, we're kind of at the bottom of there's the Highland Rim Plateau, and then the Nashville Basin, and the high in between is the hills going down from one level to the next. So we move from one part of the top of the Highland Rim to another part where we're kind of down at the bottom. So we're on hills in the Nashville Basin.
Well, it sounds gorgeous. And it's very nice of you to invite people out there for a race in your backyard. So I actually don't know this. Did the big backyard start at this household?
Yes, I wanted to have a race here that people could come and enjoy the yard, and that was how the whole backyard concept came up. There's about 5 or 6 miles of trails, which is about as many as you need for 140 acres. So how can you have a good ultra when you have limited space and you're just a family, so you have limited resources? And then we came up with that format and said I thought this would be a lot of fun. And apparently lots of people have found it fun, because we had the first one in 2012 or 2011. And that year there was 45 people that ran the only backyard race there was. And now we're approaching 200 backyard ultras in 43 countries. So it's a good grassroots event to put on. If someone wants to put on a race, all you really need to have is a notepad and a wristwatch. Well, I guess you would need your ink pen so you could write on the pad.
And you need a 4-point, how many mile loop?
And a 4.1667 mile loop, but you can fit that about anywhere. People run them in neighborhoods and stage the race out of their house, or just have a small park where you have that much. There was one guy who, right before all of there's a virus going around. I don't know if you've heard, there's some kind of bug.
Yeah.
And right before that became an issue, he was fixing to do one in England where it went, it was going to be staged in the parking lot of a soccer stadium. And then you would run a trail down one side of the Thames, cross the river on one of the famous bridges, and then run down the other side and cross back over and come back up the trail to the soccer stadium. And I thought that was going to be a really cool place to have a race, because they had those fancy old bridges and running right alongside the river, so it's not going to be all hilly.
Yeah, it's really cool to see the creative routes that people come up with.
The one in our yards turned out to be, there's no way to build a trail on the farm without hills and rocks, because it's a farm made out of hills and rocks. So we work at it to make it as easy as we can, because in a backyard, the harder the trail is, the easier the race. And the easier the trail, the harder the race, because if you don't have difficult stuff, then there's no reason not to be able to do 4 miles in an hour again.
So then people keep going.
So you can go and go and go. You have to deliberately quit.
So what made you decide? So you had it in your backyard. 40 people came. It was a big success. Everybody liked the format. Who won the first year?
Tim England from out in Washington State. And the next year, the first year, that was just all the people that wanted to run. And then every year since, it's filled up, and it's filled up by a greater and greater margin. And now it's, I guess the officially we call it the World Championship, and you have to qualify to get in.
And so how do you qualify to get in?
We had, the last few years, we started having golden ticket races around the world, the bigger backyards in different countries. And if you won one of those, you got an automatic ticket here. And then we picked up, that would fill a certain number of spots, and the rest of them you just fill with the people who had done the longest races leading up to that one over the last previous few years.
So they like send an application to you, or do they sign up and then
they send an application, or they sign up on Ultra Sign Up, which is kind of the same thing, and then they put down their credentials and you pick through them.
That's a lot of work. I thought you were retired.
It's really fun. I am failing at retirement. I have not done a good job of retirement at all.
Well, I see you doing what your passion is, and I don't know if you remember, but you were my co-captain. We ran an aid station at Tunnel Hill one year. And one of the things I learned about you is that you have an absolute passion for seeing people compete. Like, you really get a joy out of that. You love sports. And I think it's so interesting that you've created these. That's why I think your events are so great, because you truly love competition.
It's your job as a race director is to provide a platform for people to find the greatness in themselves. Everybody's got greatness in them, but they needed the opportunity to really face up to the challenges that brings that out. I think one thing you hear a lot of people say, the Vol State, especially when they get in, they say, I found things in myself I didn't know was there.
How did you come up with Vol State?
You can't. That's a passionate thing that I've enjoyed doing forever, was journey runs. You see, the map really makes you do it. The first one, you look and you run from the city you're in to another city, and you think that was such great fun. And then it kind of grows, going from the Alabama state line to the Kentucky state line across Tennessee. You look, and there's the two state lines of one road that goes all the way between them. You have to do it. And then they got worse and worse. You say, well, there's Nashville and Knoxville, or there's Memphis and Knoxville, or Memphis and Bristol. And they keep getting further apart. The first one, going from Alabama to Kentucky, I knew nothing. I got dropped off, and all I had was my running shorts and shoes and a t-shirt and a nylon windbreaker. And I cut a hole in the pocket and stuck some money down inside the lining so that I would have some funds and I could get stuff to eat and drink. And I did not make it. There were a lot of errors made along the way. I did the first 64 miles in 12 hours and 14 minutes, which was over a number of really substantial mountains and through the countryside. I did it in October, so the weather would be good. But it was the day of the Oklahoma-Texas game, so I had to run that 64 miles to get to a place where I could stop at a bar and watch the game. And learn one of the lessons is, if you stop at a bar to watch a game, you can't accept every free beer that's offered because it's not productive. And then when I went back out, it was no longer nice. It was raining. It got really cold at night. And that's where I learned you have those journey runs in the summer, no matter how hot it is during the day, all you got to do is slow down. But when it's really, really cold and raining on you at night, there's not a whole lot you can do. This was back in the days of newspapers. I stopped at a newspaper machine and opened it up and took out all the previous day's newspapers and stuffed them into my clothes to try to stay warmer. And then the newspaper got wet, so I was walking down the road trailing a string of yucky white poops that were dropping out of my clothes. And my feet got blistered all the hell because I didn't know how to take care of my feet. I ended up stopping. I did 93, 95 miles, something just short of 100 in like 23 hours, even with the football game stopped. And then I had to call for help. I said, my feet are coming apart. I'm frozen to death.
That's pretty
I've
fast.
got sock newspapers stuck all over me. I could do better when I was younger. But I talked about that to people, I'm going to go back and do it again. You know how it is when you fail at something. You have all these things that you can do right so that it'll work. And I would tell people that, and they'd say, oh man, when you do that, tell me I want to go. When you do that, tell me I want to go. And I finally said, that's so many people. We just need to have a race and see who can get from Alabama to Kentucky first.
And did you do the race with them?
We did the race with that, and that was the beginning of the Vol State. We did that a couple of years, and then Richard Westbrook broke 24 hours. We said, hell, it's no fun if it doesn't go 2 days. So we switched and went from Nashville to Knoxville and Knoxville to Nashville, and kept extending to find the perfect distance. And then when we did about 2000, we figured out the course going from the ferry boat in Kentucky to the top of the mountain, Castle Rock Mountain in Georgia, and said, that's perfect. It fits in a length of time people say, 10-day limit so that anyone can do it. Anyone can do 50K a day for 10 days. But people that are really fast, it's still going to take them through several days and several nights. So that it'll be properly difficult. And we've been on that course ever since. It goes through all rural countryside. As the number of runners have grown and we keep doing it, all the people along the way have learned that it happens. So they look forward to July. They're so excited and supportive, and people set up little aid stations in their yard, and they'll set out coolers with drinks and ice in them, and lean a little sign up or right on the side says Vol State.
Yeah, so it's like a parade running by their house.
Then some of those little towns, it's the biggest event of the year.
Yeah,
the year the week all the homeless people pass through.
That shows to be homeless. That's great. So what year did you start running?
1966. Someone had asked me the other day how long I had been running, and I said it was 53 years, but it turns out I thought about that, and I actually think I'm starting into my 55th year of running.
Wow.
Although you wouldn't call anything I do running anymore. The only thing I run is if I'm trying to cross a road and the cars are coming too fast.
Well, you still get out and move every day, and you're doing your best, so I think that's really great.
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Doing about 60 miles a week.
That's fantastic. That's more than I'm doing, that's for sure.
It's more than I'm doing.
I thought it was kind of a minimal standards, about 50 a week.
when you're talking about, you doing this journey run and you're telling your friends what you want to do and everybody wants to do it. And I think about ultra running kind of booming in the last 10 years, but you had friends that were wanting to do it well before then. Like what did people think of you running? Like how many people were really running that far?
I lived in Shelbyville and ran every day and then I could run. So, 15 or 20 miles was not a big thing. It didn't take so long as it would take now. And everyone in town just called me the running guy because I was the only person in Shelbyville that ran. And then gradually over the years, there's been more and more. I started doing ultras. I did my first ultra distance run in 76 just to try and get where the last 10K of a marathon was not so where that I wasn't just dying at the absolute limit of as far as I could go. And then I ran my first ultra race in 79. And so I was starting to get into it in 78, looking for a race to run. And the big issue then was that ultra running was booming and growing so fast that what would happen to the nature of the sport if there came a day where everyone didn't know each other? Because everyone that ran ultras knew everyone else. If you hadn't met them in person, you knew someone who had.
I kind of feel like it's a little bit that way myself. I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like a lot of us kind of know each other now too. But I'm sure it's much bigger.
It's much bigger now. There's just all those people out there that you've never seen. When Ultra Running magazine started, you read every issue, every race that was held, the results were printed. And you went down all the results to see what all your friends had done. And then as time went by, it's like there was more and more people in there in the results that you didn't know. And I was shocked when there came a day that they couldn't actually print the results of every race.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure. What was your first 50K that you did? Your first official organized race?
The first race I did was the Strolling Gym. You didn't really have 50Ks yet. They didn't become a thing until much later.
And Strolling
So
Gym,
it was only 41.2.
Okay.
That's the one I put on because when I was looking for a race to run, once I decided to run an ultra and started searching for a race to run, the closest choices I had were either New York City or Miami.
And so your very first race you created, which I think I forgot to mention, was the Strolling Gym.
So they would have a race to run.
Okay, and you ran it yourself, so you raced.
And then you find out, for me, you can't race direct a race and run well. You had to run well in a race or to do well in any kind of competitive event. You have to be focused on it, prepared for it. That's where your head needs to be. You can't be 5 miles into the race and someone drives up to tell you that somebody is taken a knife and punched holes in the water bottles at the 30-mile mark and try to figure out, okay, now what do we do? Or they come and tell you that we failed to start the clock when the race started.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be really, like, I can't even imagine,
what are we going to do?
Yeah, because just running, but you ran and completed it the first year while like simultaneously race directing it.
Yeah, I completed it several years in a row. And then a couple of times since then, I've gone out and done it where I wasn't actually the race director that year. But the times change.
So then when did the Berkeley Marathons come into the picture?
That me and Raw Dog hiked the first Berkeley Loop in 1985 just to see what the trails were like. It's a place, Frozen Head, I've gone backpacking there since before it was a park. And we went backpacking with normal people. So you'd see on the map these boundary trails around the boundary that were just, the contour lines looked like shading because they were all touching each other. And we said, well, one day we've got to come up here with just us and do that trail and see what it's like. And so in 85, we did it, and the whole way around, you think, what a race this would make.
Because I mean, incredibly hard.
It's pretty difficult. There's some discomfort involved.
So where did you learn? So you must know how to navigate your way through when there's not trails. Like, when did you learn how to do that?
I was really lucky when I was 12. I joined a Boy Scout troop. That's where I met Raw Dog. And every month they went on a backpacking trip, and you had to learn how to navigate with a map and compass. And when I got up a couple of years into it and was one of the more experienced people, they would take the ones of us that had shown we knew how to take care of ourselves, and they would just drop us, and they would say, here's where the camp will be. And we would pick a place that we wanted to hike there from, and then plan our route through the mountains. And then they would drop us off with our backpacks and our compasses and our maps, and we would find our own way up there. And it's really fun to navigate through the woods with your map and your compass. And you come to the Highland, or the Cumberland Escarpment, which is like a 200-foot rock cliff that goes from down in Alabama to all the way up into Pennsylvania. And we've got to cross that. So we have to look at the map and figure out where there's going to be a place that we can get through. And you can figure those things out. It came in really handy when we got the farm, because everyone said it's all bedrock right under the soil. It's all rock. There is no place that'll perk to put your septic system. I said, give me let me get a topo map. And I got the topo map, and I studied, and I said, here is a place. If there's anywhere on the farm, the way the land lays, there will be soil accumulated there. And I had to pretty much cut my way in to reach it. But sure enough, that was the one spot that you could put in a septic system. Then we just had to build a 1/4-mile long pipe to take all the sewage down to it.
That's very interesting. So now I kind of can understand, like, how at the at the Berkeley Marathon, what's the name of the park again? Frozen Head. Frozen Head. Yeah, I was drawing a little bit of a blank. Because you just take people off wherever there, but you obviously have hiked all of that and know your way around well.
As of right now, we don't have any trail we use or any book that we've placed that me and Raw Dog have not gone to. But over the last couple of years, some of those places we go, oh man, they're getting really, 30 years ago, we would go in and we'd figure out a route to hit all the low books on like Saturday, go do a loop of the park and put in all the low books. And then on Sunday, hike up and go around and put out all the high books. And then it got to be where, well, we need an extra day because we can't get all that done in one day. And now a lot of the books, it's all day to just put one book in. And some of them are getting to where we can't hardly get out there and get back before dark.
And where do you get all the books?
Originally, I would look for used bookstores when I was traveling, and you find a used bookstore and go in and look for titles. But people started volunteering titles and sending them to me, and I've collected several boxes of books that have good titles that kind of fit. And then you sit down before that year and you think, what is the theme for the year? And you look through the book titles and find titles that fit with the theme, and then you lay them all out and you think about all the book locations and what time it will be when the runners get there, how far they'll be, what they will have just done, what's in front of them. And you kind of fit the book titles to what's going on in their head, so that when they read the title, if they're really thinking about it, and some of them will comment on it, they say, he's messing with us. Because the book title fits exactly what's going on in my brain right now.
So you're help pushing along their hallucinations that they're gonna have, possibly.
just doing mean stuff. The meanest one we ever put out was there was a book called 6 Seconds. So the year after that, Gary Robbins, he actually took a wrong turn and missed the last 2 miles of the course. But he came in 6 seconds after the time limit had run out too. And that's what everyone was hung up on, was the 6 seconds, which really didn't matter. But it made a perfect book title so that when he got to the second book and pulls it out, it says 6 seconds.
That is mean.
He said, he called me bad names right at that moment.
Well, you know you're a successful race director when your name becomes a swear word on the course.
You'd hate to think you put on a race and people at no point cursed your name or wished for bad things to happen to you.
So, like, I'm trying to wrap my head around that race, and like the amount of work that you've put into that is absolutely incredible. Like, you're thinking about what book they're going to get, where they're going to be, what time it's going to be. Like, how much, like, that's a lot of preparation. Like, all year long, you're getting ready.
When we leave the park at the end of one race, we already know what time it's going to start next year. We already know the course and where the books will be. It's already all been worked out. We set the starting time so that you can't be tempted to alter it to fit circumstances. We had one year the year that we blew the conch at before midnight, because we started just after midnight. And that year Byron Backer was running, and he's an old friend, and he got caught up at work and couldn't get out. So as he was driving into the campground, we blew the conch. And you would have said, poor Byron, let's roll this back and start it later. Nobody will know. But no, that time was already set for a year. You have to blow it when the time comes. So we blew the conch as poor Byron drove up. He just had to get out of his car and prepare to run and not even set up his tent.
So how did he do?
Not well.
Yeah, that's not the ideal Did he like set up his tent in between, like when he came back?
No, I think he just crashed in his car. What crashing he did, or on the side of the trail. A lot of people just lay down beside the trail and sleep. Say that works out good. It's pouring rain and windy and freezing cold. So when you do lay down on the trail and sleep, you won't sleep for long before the discomfort wakes you up and you're forced to go on.
Yeah, I can see some benefit of that, because then you don't get too comfortable. It's not like you're staying at like a nice bed that's too comfortable to get out of. It's a lot easier to get up from the ground.
Mm-hmm.
They have trouble just leaving camp because they've been alone with nothing for all that time. And then you get into camp and people are providing you food. There's a fire. You can get warm. You can get dry clothes. All of these wonderful things. And you have to intentionally walk back out.
And do you stay awake the entire time?
I stay awake until we reach a point where that everything is kind of settled, which is usually sometime in the wee hours Sunday night or early Monday morning. As long as someone might come in from some direction at any moment, you have to be there in some form or fashion. I do remember the year they made the documentary that everyone likes, and they have me on there talking at some point, and I remember that so well because I was sitting there. It's when one of the runners comes in on the fourth loop, and they're hollering, "Runner, runner," because I remember I was sitting there in my chair, and I hadn't been to sleep yet. And they're hollering, "Runner, runner," and I'm thinking, there's something I'm supposed to do. There's a race going on, and I have a duty. And I know what race it is. I'm not sure. So I'm trying to draw myself together, and they come and ask me a question, and I actually gave an answer, but I remember it because it was just filler. It's like I got to answer this question without knowing what the hell they're talking about, and just try to stall for time while I remember where I am and what's happening.
Oh my gosh, I can totally.
But I was confused. I was sitting by the yellow gate, and somehow I was hallucinating. The yellow gate was like a country store. And then the sky was like the roof of a big gymnasium. And all, of course, the trees around you were the walls. So I felt like I was in a building.
So you were kind of dreaming. And talking like people came into your dream.
I was lost, but I figured it out by the time the runner got up there. I was able to take that they had dropped, and that was that. Either that one or the one right behind him was the one. Okay, now I know where the people are that are still out there, and they're too far away to come back immediately. And there's nobody else left to wonder about. I can go get an hour's sleep.
Is there anything
which makes you feel so much better?
Yeah, it's amazing how much just even a 10-minute nap can help you get your
At least you know where you are.
Yeah. You're not giving filler answers going, okay, what am I supposed to be doing?
I've got to figure that out before the runner gets here. What race am I at, and what am I supposed to do?
You've talked about a lot of friends that you've had for a long time. I'm a little, so who is some of the base people that have been with you since you started putting on all these races?
Oh, Dirt Thompson is an old timer that goes back. He didn't do a lot of races anymore. He still does the strolling gym every year because I think he's done it 38 years in a row, 39, something like that. We didn't count last year because there was some kind of bug going around, and nobody hardly came. We had to have a kind of a strolling gym just to keep a placeholder event. We had 33 people that started them at 10-minute intervals.
Well, that's so interesting you had that.
There's not been time during all of this to really lose a lot of sleep worrying about the things that you can't do or the things that you had planned that you didn't get to do, because it's all you can do to figure out how, what you're going to do and how you're going to do it so that you can continue to do things.
Yeah. I like to have fun, so I'm not going to let a pandemic get me down. I'm going to find a way to have fun and adventure still.
But yeah, I've pretty well been socially isolated, but it's really not, it's pretty easy when that's your normal lifestyle. I mean, my nearest neighbors are a half-mile away, and it's closer to walk to their house through the woods than it is to go on the road.
Yeah. Do you have any big adventures planned for you? Like, I know you walked by foot across the United States. Do you have anything else like that planned in the future?
I am planning another trip across the U.S. that I would really like to start this spring. Um, I'm at 60 miles a week right now, and I'll gradually work that up. I'd like to be doing 100 miles a week by the time it starts. But I'm going to do a much easier version this time than I did last time, and figure on doing around 160 miles a week during the crossing. So I've got to get close enough to bridge that gap. When I was young, I could just go do a journey run and say, oh, I'm going to do 30 miles. I'm going to average 40 or 45 miles a day. And I'm not in any kind of condition, but the first 3 or 4 days will break me in, and then I'll be fine. Or you have to plan it a lot different, because you could say, well, it's a big gap from here to here. I need a 65-mile day-to-day to cover that. And you say, okay, I'll run a lot faster and get my 65 in, and then I'll just do a shorter day tomorrow. Now I can just go the one speed. All the gears except low 2 are burnt out. And low 2 there's a lot of grinding and smoking that goes with low 2 now. This is why I wanted to do that this year. I don't know if my legs will hold up for another year or not. I have put a lot of miles on them.
Yeah, it sounds like you're doing great. Will you have crew when you do it? Or do you just like put a credit card in your pocket and go?
The first one, I didn't really have to have a crew until I got to Dubuque, or is that WK? Anyway, Iowa, because after you get to Dubuque, there's a lot of nothing. And the further past Dubuque you get, the more nothing there is. So, and because I can't run faster to get between big spaces, I had to have a crew after Dubuque. This time, I'd really like to have a crew from the beginning. I want to tone down the number of miles so that I'm not just going all the time. I lost 40 pounds the last time across, because I was on the road 14 hours a day, and you add in getting your room and getting a shower and I literally never had time to eat enough food to get refueled, and ended up having to burn my body. And then early, there was one spot in Pennsylvania and New York where I went 3 days without hitting the right time to find some place to eat. So the third day I was getting to the end of the day was coming into maybe Cleveland, no, Erie. And I was really wobbly and thinking, oh, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make this, because I really run down. And I got to my motel for that night. And then there was, thank God, a place you could call that delivered food. And I called and had them bring me a family-sized calzone. And it took one bite of the calzone to say, oh, that's the problem. Yeah, how long has it been since I ate?
Oh my God.
Oh, it's been 3 days. No wonder I'm hungry.
Oh man.
So I now can add that to my list of advice for people that are doing long runs. Never go more than 2 days without food.
I can't believe that you made. That's amazing that you were able to do that. So you did not have crew at that point. You were by. They couldn't go get you food.
No, I was by myself. I had my stuff in a pack. I stayed the night before that. I stayed in this little motel, and you had all the. Of course, most of them now is Indians that own them, and you stop there, and the guy is looking you over, and it is one of the seediest residential motels you've ever seen. I mean, it was just grungy, broken down, nothing, with these people hanging around where that you well, I can't leave anything in my room, that's for damn sure. Then you get in, there's no air conditioning. It's the middle of the summer, everything is humid, the bed is damp. And he charged me just like this huge rate because he knew it's 25 miles to the next motel, and I'm on foot and exhausted. You think, yeah, sorry. You go down in the next place you stay. It's an Indian run it, and he asks you what you're doing. He's so excited what you're doing. He gives you a discount on your room, and then his wife prepares you a delicious meal of Indian food right there. Say, and of course, that's more typical of what you run into on a journey run. Your human encounters are almost all really good.
Yeah, I imagine that the people that you're meeting, like the lady that made you the homemade food, like they've got to be like so fascinated by what you're doing. Did people know who you were? Like people outside of the ultra world, they're like, oh yeah, I've heard about you.
No, not too much. I looked pretty grubby. I looked like roadkill and felt like roadkill. People are really interested because I think everyone in their heart would love to do something like that. And you have to walk, you have to go, all you got to do is go to the ocean and then walk away from it. And
yeah,
the rest is gravy.
And so how long do you expect it'll take you from start to finish for your, and so that's like 2021 or 2022?
2021.
Okay.
Coming up I'd like to start in April.
Okay.
So I'll start ramping up my training a little bit over the next couple of months. Because the older you get, the longer it takes to get in shape. And I'd like to start April 1st. We need to start making some serious moves towards getting things under control. I'm allowing a few months for that to happen. I think I could do it and make it to the finish in time, starting as late as maybe April 15th. But I don't want to end up where you have to hammer like I did last time. The last month of the trip was a race every day, and I needed to get back for the fall classic because that's really one of the races we have that benefits a lot of organizations and people, and they all tell me it's important that I'm there. I don't know why, but it is. And so I have to get done in time to get back. So that time, every night I would take the Google Maps and figure out how much further I had to go, starting about 950 miles out once I get into the last 1,000. Because, in any run, once you get in the last 1,000, it's the home stretch. And I would measure how far Google Maps said it was to the finish. And then I'd go out the next day and I'd go down the highway and I'd count my miles by mile markers so that they're right. And you'd go from this mile marker to this mile marker and you'd add up so many miles you had so that you could reduce the average of what you had left, trying to get it down to something you could do without killing yourself. And you say, oh, good, I took 2 or 3 miles. I went 2 or 3 miles over the distance today, and I can lower that average I need. And then you run it on Google Maps again. And it's changed. You don't reduce it by as many miles as you know that you did. And I am at a loss to explain it, but by the time I got in the last few hundred miles, I was just looking at people and say, well, what can we do for you? What can we do for you? See, drive from here to the coast and watch your odometer. Follow because I'm going exactly Highway 20 the rest of the way. Drive from here to the beach and measure it on your odometer, and then drive back and measure it on your odometer again, and tell me exactly how far away I am. And they'd come back, and they got distracted. They lost their count. They didn't write it down, and they couldn't remember for sure. It's like, no, you do not understand how important this is. I'm fixated on this. I just want to know one time exactly the right distance to the finish. I made my cutoff by 2 hours.
Oh my gosh. So across the United States,
3,300 and whatever it was miles with an absolute cutoff that I made by 2 hours. I did my first 1,000 miles in 35 days and some change. I did the second 35,000 miles, and I took the time on that, and I said, God, that's really close to my first 1,000 miles. So since your phone loses stuff after a month, I didn't have any way to check what my first 1,000-mile time was, and I wrote to a friend and asked him, Mike Dobie said, look it up and see what my first 1,000 was. 16 minutes different. I was a metronome out there. The third 1,000 miles racing for my life, I actually took 5 hours off of that time.
My gosh. Well, you do hear about people getting faster as they go along with crazy stuff, but yours was more of, I have to get done, I got to get to work.
Mine was more, you were cutting out everything. You said, okay, no more sitting down for lunch. Okay, no more stopping for this. No more stopping to take pictures. Eliminate this, eliminate that, get it down to where you're just going as much as you can go all day, every day. And my legs reached a point where I don't know how they went. I mean, all the messages I'm getting are telling me they're done, that I'm finished. But I keep telling them to take another step, and they keep taking it. And you go and go and go. I got to the beach, and I was so mad because I get there. It's low tide. One, it's low tide. So the ocean is way the hell out there. Not up here where it should be. Second, I had only ever seen it on Google Street View, and it looks like you're at the edge of the park, and there's a little flat grassy knoll and then the beach. But what you couldn't see from Google Street View is there's like a 200-foot cliff that you have to go down this steep trail to the beach to get to it. So I went down to the beach and walked all the way out till I could just touch the water. I kept wanting to catch a wave as it came in, but no, they come in, stop, and go back out. And you have to keep chasing them to get further out there. Touched the water, came back, and got back up to the top of the cliff. They brought my lawn chair down because I told them I want to stop. As soon as I'm done, I want to sit down and have a cigarette and Dr. Pepper because I'm done. And then I told him, no, take the yard chair back to the top of the hill because I got to get back up that cliff before I stop. And then I went back up and sat down that chair by the car, and I was done. When I had my walking stick, I'd used all the way across, and then my various gear, and then the stuff that I'd really accumulated a lot of stuff with when I had a crew at the end. There was some homeless guy there. So we're unpacking my stuff and saying, only what we can carry on the plane. So we're just saying, you want this? Oh, yeah. He's putting it in his shopping cart, offloading all my Transcon gear. But I got down to my walking stick and I said, God, I hate to throw this away, but there's no way they'll let me take it on the plane. They said, take it with you and tell them you need it to support yourself. I didn't even have to tell them that. No one even asked a question. By the time we got to the airport, I could barely stand, and without that walking stick, I could neither have stood up nor walked. It's a great strategy, a great thing to do before a flight because it was the easiest time in security I've ever had. They were so anxious. They don't ask, what are you doing with a stick? They say, are you okay? Can you make it? Can you stand in the x-ray machine by yourself?
And you're like, I just got done walking across the entire United States.
Right.
I tell them I'm a little bit wobbly, but I'm okay. I'm a little bit wobbly. Well, that's a lot wobbly. But I wasn't okay, but I was going to get through it. They were just hurrying me through because they thought I was going to die on their station.
They're like, get him down to the next people before he dies. We don't want to
move him on to the next spot.
So at a race, you really should leave everything on the course. Like that's how you're supposed to finish, and that's what you did.
That's what you have when you leave everything out there. There was nothing left. It was amazing though, because that I continued to walk the same way. My mile times were so consistent that when I was walking by the mile markers at night, and I'd walk along and you can't see them, and I'd walk and watch my watch and then say, there'll be a mile marker here. And if there was someone, they're just astounded. How did you? Because every mile is the same. Yeah. And walking, they're the same. It didn't matter if I was going up a mountain, down a mountain, across the desert, every mile was the same time. So the only way to get more miles was to find more time. And you walk right up to the end. But when your brain knows it's done, then the physical toll comes in. It's what you find in all these races. You can do so much more than you think you can do if you just ask. Well, I don't guess you really ask your body. You tell it, this is what we're going to do. And you just do it.
How long did
But I don't want to do that again.
Yeah, no, yeah, do it much. Take what you
learned. I want to cruise in and feel like partying after I get finished.
What would be a party for you? Like, what do you imagine your finish is going to look like?
Well, based on experience, I guess there'll probably be some homeless guy there that I can give all my gear to.
Good stuff.
Having time to actually drive home instead of have to get on an airplane and fly home, because if I drive home, I would stop about every hour and get out and stretch my legs. And the next morning, I would not get up and fix my feet. Out of all of that, the routine the first day was easy to fix your feet. You get up, you put just a little dab of Vaseline on there to keep them soft and moist, and put on your shoes and socks and go. And then as you go along and you have the wear and the tear, and you start having to do this and that and the other additional stuff to get your feet prepared. I had some real problems with my little toes. They ended up requiring a lot of doctoring. And so I got to where it was a 30-minute process or more just to get your feet prepped to put them in your shoes. And that was the only thing I hated. I just did not want to get up. And the first thing I did every morning was fix my feet.
So you need like a crew that's going to fix your feet for you.
No, I don't trust anyone else with my feet. I've got to take care of them.
You know how to keep
But I
them.
did mention my little toes, and I want everyone, it still needs to be known. My little toes contributed nothing. They are useless to you. They have no purpose. I ended up, for the first one in Nebraska, I finally had to cut a hole in the side of my shoe and put it in a big bubble of gauze, which was just one more thing to fix on my foot, and stick it out into the air because they hurt so bad. And then the right little toe, about 500 miles later, I had to do the same thing to it. They did not carry their weight. They're not team players. Your little toes. I hate to throw them under the bus like that, but they had every opportunity to just don't complain. You're not even asking them to do anything except not hurt.
Those little piggies needed to go home.
Mhm.
They needed to stay at home. In Nebraska, when I finally gave up and did the doctoring on the left one because it had gotten so bad, and I stopped on the side of the road and was sitting in my chair and had my shoe off, my toes sitting out there, and there would just be waves of this intense, unbearable pain. And I thought, why? It's not touching anything. It's not doing anything. Why is it still hurt? And then I realized when a car went past, the wind off of the car hitting my toe was unbearably painful.
Oh my God.
It was, I made a little ball out of gauze with a hole for my toe, and then put a single strip of duct tape, a little thin strip around the bottom to hold it in place. And that worked for about a week. And then it started to fall off because I hadn't really realized it at the time when I finally broke down and did all that stuff for my little toe. It was the same size as my big toe.
My
It
God.
was so swollen.
Did you break it?
No, I have no idea what its problem was. Well, the left little toe I do, because I injured it when I was a little tiny, when I was only that big.
Okay.
And it's always been messed up, but it hasn't been that kind of an issue before. And I had planned before I did the next transcon, I was going to have surgery on that little toe, and then the other little toe to try and fix it so it wouldn't hurt so bad, and then on a neuroma. But of course, elective surgeries have been out the window, and it looks like it's doubtful that I'll be able. You also don't heal as fast when you're old. I'm not sure that there will be a situation where I'm comfortable with an elective surgery far enough from the go date to let it heal. So much to my chagrin, the little toes may get to do another transcon with me, but I'm going to cut the hole in my shoe really early. And
Yeah, I mean, there's something about like major pain on your body that kind of like keeps you thinking about something else. Like I don't know if that would be like, I always like to look at the positive of every situation. You were worried about the little toes, so you didn't have to worry about something else.
I didn't see any positives to the little toes, man. They were just, I don't know why we have them. I'd rather have wisdom teeth than little toes.
Yeah. Well, they look cute with fingernail polish on them, so I think maybe.
Is that what it is?
They're kind of cute.
Well, your foot looks strange if them and the big toe are the same size.
Well, that'll be interesting to see what happens for your next transcontinental. How can people help you on that? Like, if are you looking for support?
Right now, I've been putting queries on my Facebook page, and then also I've got one for my the LASCON 2021 where people that are interested can watch. And I'm asking for help on my route finding. The first time I had a really simplistic approach to my route finding, and I learned a lot of bitter lessons about going through major cities. It's changed over the last 40 years. You really can't plan on going into and out of a big city on a major highway anymore because they've all been turned into interstates. The traffic is so bad. So you have to cobble together, get off at the right place and take all these back routes to get through. And of course, still want to go through the center of the city because that's what you're there for. And so I'm doing a lot of that, and then places out in the country. The western part of Colorado, I found when I got to Montrose to get to Grand Junction, my last stretch in Colorado goes across a section of desert. It's a little over 60 miles of what's basically an interstate type road now, but it has narrow shoulders. So I studied it every way there was. There's no way to do it. And the only way to go around it, there was about 100-mile detour going up into the mountains and then back down into Grand Junction. And I worked through all that detour and sat back and looked at it and said, it goes east. Well, there's this head thing. When you're going from east to west, you're bitter about going north and south. The only way you want to go is west. And to go east, if you get caught in a place where you have to go back towards the other ocean, it just fills you with bitterness. And I thought, maybe there's somewhere I can cut off the highway a few cities back and take a shortcut to get up to there and then come down to Grand Junction. It ended up being about 2 miles different, but at least I don't have to go at any point east.
Yeah.
But it's again, you've cobbled together back highways and then back roads and then land management roads and nothing roads. And out west, they'll have a thing. People will say, I own all the land on either side of this road. And they apply to the government to have the road turned over to them. The government turns the road over to them because then they don't have to maintenance it. And they put a gate on it. So I have some places up in the remote mountains in western Colorado that some people that live out there in that area, matter of fact, when I look back on Facebook, I may see the answer. They're checking for gated roads because I hit some of those last time and you've walked 10 miles out. And then you have to turn around and walk 10 miles back to where you were and start on the route that you were taking a shortcut around to start with.
Yeah, that would be as bad as heading east when you're heading west.
The only thing worse than going east at all is going east over a road you just went west of.
Yeah.
That's... Fortunately, I have a good safety valve. I swear. When I'm not happy about it, I swear a lot. But, who the hell cares?
Well, we're really looking forward to that adventure. So when you're near Chicago, that's where we are, like Wisconsin, Chicago. You're like the southern part of the state you're going through though?
Yeah, this time I'm going to go across the Washington Mall, the Capitol Mall, within the first week, I think. And then I'll go under the arch in St. Louis, and I'll finish my last day right before the end. We'll be going over the Golden Gate Bridge. And I thought those are really cool. And in between, there's so much stuff to see. Old sections of the Lincoln Highway, the Lincoln Trail. I really did a much better job this time of scouting out the old roads as opposed to the new highway and going through some of the old state capitals and where we cross at St. Louis where the pedestrian bridge is. is the first bridge across the Mississippi River that was that far south. So it'll be the 8th different place I've crossed the Mississippi River not in a car.
Very cool.
There's 3 of them were ferries, and 1 of them I jumped. And you know where I jumped.
So
it's a hint. It wasn't New Orleans.
Okay. On your Facebook page, will we be able to follow so we know when to go, and how do we find
I want to do it last time because so many people have to help you to pull something like this off. And I wrote something every day about my trip. But a lot of it, you were just, squeezing out whatever you could get. This time I hope to be going where there's time enough to actually write about the journey, because it's really an amazing experience. There is so much out there to see, and so much history and geology and the people encounters and all the stuff that goes on, all the funny stuff, the pigs. I thought out on the last Transcon, I won't be able to write to the kids like every day and tell them, you're my kids, I love you, and all this stuff that you're supposed to do if you're a good father, which, my kids got what they got. They should have applied for a better father, but they didn't. So whenever I saw a pig statue, like they have them at barbecue places and stuff, I would take a picture of me kissing the pig and send it to Chris, my youngest. And then whenever I passed a baseball field, my middle child, Amy, is a big baseball fan. So I took pictures of all kinds of baseball fields. I would go over and take a picture of the baseball field and send it to her. And then when I saw funny street names or funny road names, I took a picture of the sign and sent it to my son. And that way they weren't left out, although about a month into the journey, Chris wrote to her mother and asked, "Why does Dad keep sending me pictures of pigs?"
She didn't know the method of your madness there.
And there was this one time I can remember one of the cities in Ohio, and it was downtown, and there was the little pig out front. And so I got down, there was somebody with me, so I had them take the picture. So it's in front of a window, and you've got the reflection because it's dark inside, it's day outside. And I get down on my hands and knees, and I kiss the pig, and I get up, and now I'm close enough to the window to see through, and it's like a college town, and all of these teenagers are in there, and they're just laughing their asses off at this old homeless guy kissing the pig.
They didn't know it was the very famous Laz. I bet you somebody in there
homeless
did.
Guy.
Well, that's going to be, I really look forward to following that and reading what you have to write every single day. And I love the history aspect of it. I mean, Crystal knows I just love those journey runs. I have never done one. I don't take the time for myself, but it's something I really want to hopefully someday find the time to do. And I know today's better than tomorrow, but it sounds amazing.
I'm going to hit a big section of old Highway 66 coming out of St. Louis. Coming out of Kansas City, I'm going to be on the Santa Fe Trail for a while.
Cool.
Or Santa Fe. There's a Santa Fe in Tennessee, so now it's messed me up.
Oh.
But it's spelled the same. It's the old Santa Fe Trail, one of the old cattle drive trails.
Uh-huh.
Now, it'll look a lot different, but you're there and you can see and imagine and put yourself back in that spot. The Flint Hills in Kansas, that's a unique place. Crossing the plains from the Flint Hills to the mountains is hundreds of miles of just, which is really not as flat as you think looking across it, because when you're there, you'll find that the land goes down into a drain, into each drainage, and then back up. So you actually have a lot of descending and climbing. But when you look across, because the top level is all the same, except in western Kansas, there's just some standing rocks that are left over from another layer that's been gone for, so they just out in the middle of the plains are these things. And then if this year, if I'm lucky and there's not to fires, I'm looking forward to that. The first day you see the mountains, when they might be clouds, you're not really sure. If you've driven out west, I'm sure you've done this in the car. You know, you're waiting for the mountains, and then is that them? Is that them? In an hour, you know. Well, it could take me a whole day to figure out. Yeah, definitely it's the mountains, and then you watch them gradually, day after day, get closer and closer and closer, until you get so close that you can't see them anymore because the bottom blocks out the top. And then in this case, where I'm hitting the mountains just west of Pueblo, and you literally come across the plains and it's flat, and then you hit the mountain and there's about a 4,000-foot climb.
Well,
there's
I think
the
that
mountain.
You know how to do
it's
some
right
hills.
there. I get across. You got a 11,300-foot pass in Colorado. That ought to be fun.
Yeah. Do you have to worry about any weather? Like snow weather particularly?
I don't think so. It may be in some of those higher elevations, it's probably possible all year round.
But since you're starting in April.
I'm hoping in the higher places in Colorado, I'll be early enough to still see some of the snow. You go out there when it's early July and there's still snow around you, but it's 80 degrees. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. Well, that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. So next up, we should do the Ornery Mule Stubborn 5. Make sure I appreciate all your time. And Crystal always does Ornery Mule Stubborn 5, which is really fun questions. Crystal doesn't like it when I oversell her, though.
Oh, I thought you were getting ready to cover something and needed me to get the hell out of here.
No. We could talk to you all night, I'm telling you. Like, I am just drooling over all these fun stories. But I just respect your time, and I don't want, you gave us a lot of time already.
You have done an infinite favor for my family, whose response is always, "Oh, not Dad's stories."
Well, we love them.
Well, it's more like the stubborn few, because I feel like a lot of the questions were answered, throughout the interview. I do have a few though, so no worries.
You can ask the same question. I'll give you a different answer.
Well, my first question is, what does your wife and family think about all these adventures that you do?
I knew enough going in to say, you have to understand that I run. It's what I do. Right now, when you first are exposed to it, it's like, whoa, you can run 50 miles and you've never heard of anything like that. And it seems incredible. But there's the stages of a running spouse. There's the amazement, and then there's disillusionment, and finally disgust. It doesn't matter. It's what I do, and I'm going to continue to do it. So don't overexpose yourself. As long as I didn't expect her to become a physical fitness enthusiast. I think she does walk now, but for a long time she had dedicated her life as a protest against physical fitness.
That's funny. Do your kids run?
My son Case has run a sub 24-hour 100
Wow.
Nice.
on more than one occasion. And my middle child, Amy, has only gotten as far as 83, but she's about to produce us another grandchild, so she's not running right now. And whether that she will afterwards decide she still wants to finish 100, I don't know. But she's young. There's a lot of time to lose your mind.
Yeah, that's true.
The youngest one has walked a marathon distance, and she may have walked 50K at ARFTA, but she's definitely not a runner.
Sometimes
How
it's
many
hard.
grandchildren do you have? Oh, sorry.
Oh,
How many grandchildren?
We're I guess at 3 right now, and grandkids are fun. They come out on the weekends and we walk the trail, and so that they're getting that exposure to outdoors, and the Bryn is 7, so I can take her around, and now she can recognize deer tracks or bobcat tracks, or there's where a deer scraped his antlers on the tree, and she can find her way around the trail pretty good. Try to plant that love of nature as early as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's great.
I love
I'm
that.
curious, what breed of dogs do you have? I know you said big dog and little dog, but what kind of dogs are they?
Big dog is your standard 100-pound pit bull. I
Okay.
guess the Staffordshire Terrier. He is a wonderful dog with such a good nature. I had the runner's attitude about pit bulls before he came along, and he got dumped out here, and someone shot him. I only brought him up to the house because I was taught that you don't leave